ER.
Sharing our stories connects us. Listen and be connected. Join us for the conversation meeting weekly at the intersection of community and culture. Hosted by Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter. And here we are. It is Wednesday noon. It is WMNF 88.5, WMNF.org. And we are celebrating Happy New Year's Day with our listening audience. I am Mario Nunez, host of the conversation, co-host alongside my broadcast partner,
Joe King Carter.
There he is. Hey, Joe.
Hey, good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, brother. I'm glad
Absolutely.
that you're sitting there next to me because I wouldn't want to be doing this with anybody else. And, of course, sitting across from both of us in studio is Jessica Green. Jessica, open up that microphone and say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
That's just what we expected.
Jessica G, the OG.
Jessica
And by
G.
the way, for the sake of vanity, you need to drop your microphone down just a little bit so that the Facebook listeners can see my Uncle Fester-like face.
There it is.
Thank
There
you.
it is. Well, listen,
There we go.
and I should say right up at the top that we do the show here each and every week. Of course, we do the show each and every week with love in our hearts to keep our listening audience informed, entertained, and perhaps educate them a little bit on certain topics. But we also do a simulcast on Facebook Live off of my page because we haven't figured out how to do it off the Conversations page yet. But no, actually, because it's easier to find that way. And last week's episode, we figured we had a captive audience because it was Christmas Day, and you guys might have been on your phones or you might have been at your desktop, laptop, and you on Facebook you saw that Mario Nunez was live. So you tuned in. We had at one point about 15 viewers, which was spectacular, but we sat over almost 800 views. Now that doesn't mean they watched the whole show, but that means 800 different opportunities to expose the conversation to everybody out there. So thank you. I guess what I'm trying to say is thank you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for following us.
And
thank you for listening. Absolutely.
So let's start at the top, Joe. And I know we talked about it before we went on the air. We wanted to discuss, you had a loss in the family this week.
Well, yes, absolutely. President Jimmy Carter, who is a distant cousin of mine, passed, and special to millions and millions and millions of humans throughout the planet.
100 years young.
100, which, by the way, is you'll find that there are many, many Carters who become centenarians. My grandfather, James Alvin Carter, was lived to be 100 years old, and so it's not an uncommon characteristic. But you know, it's a moment in time we've all anticipated because of the state he was in. That he was, as he said, he was going to hang on so he could vote in the election, and he did. You know,
77 years married to his beloved.
Absolutely, and a person. Really a person of amazing integrity and love. I think, you know, we have a saying in the Carter family, which goes like this: he's not perfect, but he's damn near it. And that's how we refer to Jimmy Carter. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, it's an amazing moment in time now for us to honor him.
Hear, hear. And may we long remember his presidency as one that was maybe at times fraught, but certainly no lack of effort on his part. And, you know, he's probably deserved a second term, but he did more in his post-presidential years than any other president accomplished. Also, lived longer than any other president in United States history. So, you know, he's going to be in the record books. I mean, he's going to be remembered and studied for the integrity that he brought to the office. You know, the man was a nuclear scientist, for crying out loud, and a lieutenant in the United States Navy, and brilliant in so many ways, and a peanut farmer, and we can go on.
Yeah, there are many things about him that many people do not know.
But we're finding out now.
And as time goes on, his presidency will be more and more appreciated for who he was and what he was doing. And I will also tell you this as an insight. If you look at his fights over the years, character can be judged by a person who is willing publicly to challenge their tribe. You know, that's not an easy thing to do because you want to be liked by your friends. And President Carter was a Sunday school teacher, and he was a devout Southern Baptist, but he was a progressive. And we have in my family a number of Southern Baptists who are progressives, by the way. And he often went against the church and was critical. He was critical of misogyny. He was critical of patriarchy. He was critical of the evangelical approach to homosexuality. He fought for civil rights. So, he was a different kind of person. He was a person that was willing to truly be someone who served his country. I sort of think of Jimmy as a nobleman, but his nobility was not in power and money. His nobility was in spirit and love, and that's what he was about.
Hear, hear. Rest in power, President Carter, and long may your memory serve us here, and especially the youngsters that are just going to be studying more about him presently. As we move forward into today's show, let me just also offer those of you that are on the road right now that might be listening to us in your car radios, be mindful. Keep those wheels, keep those hands at 10 and 2 as they taught us in driver's ed. Those of you that might be driving home from visiting family. And we're grateful that you're there listening to us as well. What's the topic du jour today, Joey?
Well, I think it's New Year's Day, and we are here live from Martin Luther King Boulevard. So, I think that we didn't run another show. We came in.
We
on
like
our
to
day.
be here. This is our happy place.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, for me, it is. I look forward to doing this each and every Wednesday, as we say with great enthusiasm. We're here Hump Day during the Hump Hour to get you over the hump and to take you into the weekend. And what better time than the first Hump Day of the year? Let's ring a bell for Humpty Humps. Come on, now.
That's right. So we thought that maybe this would be a good day to talk about some of the things that people would want to talk about. And maybe that would be one of those things might be instead of the usual political foray or cultural foray, maybe we talk about resolutions and New Year's Day and that sort of thing. And so what we need for you to do, however, is get on those emails and get to us. And Mario, take it from there.
Because on these special days here in studio, we do work with just a skeleton crew, so we don't have a lot of extra hands on deck. And Jessica is working very ably to make sure that we bring in the music that we need to bring in and to keep us on time. But answering the phones can be a special challenge. We already received a phone call that we weren't able to get to. But listen, if you'd like to join the conversation, which, oh, by the way, Joe, is a fabulous name for a podcast, please do so. Send us an email, dj@wmnf.org. Send us a text, 813-433-0885, which comes to us then in the form of an email. Imagine that. And Jessica will read them for us. So please, we want to encourage your participation. It's just that answering the phones today presents a special challenge. So you want to start with resolutions, or you want to start maybe set the table with a little historical perspective on this whole New Year's thing?
Well, I thought it'd be fun for me to look back into our history of New Year's resolutions. And it turns out that, in fact, it goes all the way back to the beginning of a recorded time. That the Babylonians are the first ones at which we can really look at and see it. And what is happening there is that everybody has a calendar. Mm-hmm. They had the Romans had the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar, and the Chinese have a little different calendar. But all of those calendars, no matter how they function, are going to measure time by a last day of the year and then a first day of the year. It doesn't matter if it happens on December 31st or if it happens in March. That's what's going to happen. And apparently every culture celebrates that.
So a renewal of sorts.
A renewal. But what's interesting, I found, was that the way in which they celebrate it varies a little bit from culture to culture. It's all pretty much the same. People like to drink and party and get wild and crazy and have fun. However, some countries are not so public. Like in the Netherlands, for example, they're much more about home. Let's stay home tonight. It's a little bit more like Buena Noche. It's more
Buenas
like
noche. Yeah.
It's like a
Noche Buena.
A night. Yeah, I'm sorry, Noche Buena. It's more like a
familial celebration.
A familial celebration. Less out in the streets.
Gotcha.
But different cultures celebrate in a different way. Now, here's an interesting idea. Mm-hmm. Some cultures have 2 different days they celebrate. They celebrate the last day, and they call it Old Year's Day or Old Year's Night. And then the next day, they call that New Year's Day, just as we do.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the sense of that.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Joe? And I want to throw this in there, and then we go right back to what you, because you're on a roll, Joey. You're as you usually are. But here I'm going to cut you off again, as I usually do, because I just flashed back to when we were younger. The images that we always saw just before we watched Guy Lombardo and the New Year's celebration on our black and white TV was the old year going out as an old man with a long white beard on a cane. And then the New Year's baby. It was always a New Year's baby. So,
Correct.
wow, in 365 days, we went through a complete life cycle of that baby.
Right.
But aren't those the two images that are
Those are the
blasted
two images.
into our, burned into our mind?
Yeah, those are the images, and apparently other cultures celebrate those metaphorical images in a more direct way. So they will have various kinds of things they do on Old Year's Night or Old Year's Day, which will have to do with instead of resolutions on the next day, they will do a clearing out of things. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. And I just find that kind of interesting. You know, ultimately, time is kind of an illusion.
Albert Einstein told us that.
He's told it was relative. It's definitely relative. So it's very interesting how we approach that. Yeah, absolutely.
And let me just say right up at the top, and we see that a lot of you are joining us on the Facebook Live, and we want to say hello to you guys out there. Hey, everybody watching on Facebook Live and paying attention to us there. We love that. That, you know, we all kind of look at this particular December 31st, January 1st as a means of time stamping, you know, and you know, we just want to always looking forward to that redemption, the beginning of that redemption story.
Right.
And it seems like that's as good a time as any when the clock and the calendar flip over for us.
Absolutely.
You know, we went from, I mentioned Guy Lombardo earlier. Guy Lombardo, when we were small, watching that, and, you know, of course, we looked forward to the balloon drop then as much as the ball drop in Times Square wasn't quite as dramatic as it is now. Mm-hmm. And the singing of Auld Lang Syne, which nobody knew the words to that or what it meant, but we knew how to sing it a little bit. And then we started late in the later years after he retired with Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve, man. And that became very popular in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, all the way through the early 2000s. Ryan Seacrest took it over for a minute. And lately, I can tell you that we have been experiencing the CNN 4 hours before New Year's and the ball drops in Times Square with Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper. And it's quite hilarious because they're allowed to drink and every hour on the hour leading up to, they take a shot.
Are you saying that Anderson Cooper gets a little sloshed?
Oh, he gets a little wasted, and he doesn't drink. He doesn't drink. He's his own self-admission. He does not drink. So the tequila, which is what they're drinking, affects him much more so than it does Andy Cohen. And anyway, it's a different campy and fun way to usher in the new year. But these things do evolve. They do change.
Oh, absolutely. And to that end, do you have a guess on where New Year's resolutions on New Year's Day comes from?
I don't, but I hope that you will tell us.
Well, it's very interesting because it starts in those early pagan societies like the Babylonians, who were not monotheistic. So they had gods. Plural.
Many of them.
And so one of the things they would do on at the end of the year was make promises to their gods to accomplish a certain thing, or to be a better person, or to be to give more sacrifices to the gods.
There you go.
Whatever it may be. It could be grain. It could be money. And in that process, they would hope that the gods would favor them and improve their lives. So our New Year's resolutions actually comes out of this tradition. It started in the very beginning of serving our gods.
And it's a hopeful tradition, right? Because every time, you know, when we greet each other, we wish each other health, happiness, and prosperity. Those are the three things that are the holy trinity of New Year's Day greetings.
Mr. Spock said, "Live long and prosper."
Well, that's it.
Yeah, right. Sure. You know, I think that it's a very positive thing. I like this time of the year because it is positive. I fully understand that a large number of people who make New Year's resolutions don't keep them. But that percentage, I understand, is there are studies that show those percentages. But you know, it's still a great thing to make them. Now, I personally am a person who's, and I think many of us are this way, I'm making resolutions every every week, every day of my life.
Renewal can take place. Let's
any
face
moment.
it. Every time your feet hit the ground, the next day when you wake up, and if we're fortunate enough to do that,
That's
that
right.
can be an opportunity to refresh and renew and have a better day today than you had yesterday. I think that the New Year's Day traditions of resolutions, and they're all the same, man. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to quit drinking.
There's a lot of quitting.
There is.
There's a lot of quitting happening.
And we're not quitters, but and
Yeah.
of course, and we bear that not quitting philosophy out, because by the 10th or 15th day of the month of said first month of resolution making, we usually give up on that too.
Right.
So I'm just saying but if you will give yourself some grace. And every day just allow yourself the opportunity to get better each and every day, that might be something that we can aspire towards. The big lofty goals, hardly attainable.
Right.
And most of us fail. And then, of course, with that failure comes all of the other things that, the doubt creeps in. And
Right.
and it's not a good result. But I think if we can just give ourselves a little bit of grace and realize that, maybe just do one thing. Jessica, do you have any, we'll bring you into the conversation, do you have any resolutions that you try to make or anything of that ilk?
I resolved to take more days off this new year.
Hey, we'll ring a bell on that one.
That sounds
Joey
good.
and I are semi-retired, so we take days
Speak
off.
for yourself.
We take days off all the time. But I guess what you're saying, though, if I hear you, Jess, is we should all kind of also take time for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know how you and Jess, how your processes work, but my process is a slow massage. I'm the person who, I look at the swimming pool, I come back, I stand there for a while, I say to the person standing next to me, is the water cold? I put my toe in it. That's me. I don't jump in. I'm not a jumper. And my attitude about all that is that what I find is that my resolutions, whether it has to be with my physical self or my moral self or my ethical self, or to some degree my spiritual self, it's all stuff that I sort of slowly say, I need to do that a little better. And I get a little better, and I get a little better, and finally I seem to start to accomplish it. And that's how it works for me. So what I find in resolutions in my life is that I will be confronted with something that I want to change. And then I will say, I need to do a better job at that. I need to do something. I need to do that in a better way.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. And so then what will happen is I will begin to speak it, because I'm a big believer.
You want to
of,
manifest it into reality.
Manifestation is not a big, a manifestation is not metaphysical woo-woo. It's scientifically proven that
Absolutely.
all things that happen in human society start as a thought. Everything that's ever been invented, Einstein, Darwin, it doesn't matter. It starts as a thought. Madame Curie, it starts as a thought. And so you think a thought, you speak a thought, and you eventually act the thought.
I love that. And let's concentrate on what you just said there, Joey. But I want to remind everybody, if you have a tradition that you guys participate in your nuclear families, your extended families, please send us an email, dj@wmnf.org. You can also send us a text, 813-433-0885, because there are a myriad, a plethora, a veritable cornucopia of different traditions that all of us do experience. I'll just give you an example, because I come out of the Latino culture. One of the things we do is at the stroke of midnight, we eat 12 grapes. Now, I guess they're supposed to be green, but what if the green ones are not quite as sweet as the purple ones? And so we eat the purple ones, but we eat 12 grapes, one representing each month of the year, and we're supposed to do like a little mantra or a little meditation on each of the grapes and asking for, different things that we're going to enhance our lives. So that's one of the things we do. Another thing that I can remember my grandmother doing from the time I was a little kid was filling up a pot, like an 8-quart pot with water, and going right out the back door of the house, and just after eating the grapes, of course, throwing that pot of water out, and that was a metaphoric cleansing of the home and of the year, and
symbolic gestures.
Out with the old, right?
Yeah,
throwing out the old. So, these are little things, and if you have something that your group, your tribe experiences, share that with us. We'd love to read them on the air. Joey,
Yes, absolutely.
Do you remember any of that like that when you were young?
Oh, yes, of course. And by the way, let me just say, email us, please. we're interested in your resolutions, or maybe what you hope for in 2025. What are your
What was going on
hopes?
in Bradenton when you were little on New Year's Day and New Year's Eve?
Well, I was connected to my Georgia family a lot, and so we did not have. The big thing was to stay up and cheer the New Year in at midnight.
Yes.
Even children could stay up, and then the next day we had Hoppin' John.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
what's
by
that
the way,
all about?
in that process, I also explored recently. I started looking at the various foods that people have as traditions, like you mentioned, the 12 grapes.
Please share that.
But Hoppin' John is kind of interesting.
Black-eyed peas, for those of you that are wondering what happened.
Yeah, if you do not know what Hoppin' John is, it is a food that is eaten typically in Southern cultures during on New Year's Day. And it is oversimplified black-eyed peas on white rice, and with possibly ham involved.
Ham and co-starring also some collard greens. Because
Yes.
if you go into one of the grocery stores here, which shall remain nameless, but it sounds like Publix, you can see that right up at the front they have a counter there, refrigerated counter, and they'll always let you know what the traditional a celebratory meal might be
Right.
for whatever's coming up, be it Valentine's Day,
Right.
St. Patrick's Day, whatever that might be, because they'll have it in the case there. And right next to the Hoppin' Johns is the collard green.
Yeah, Hoppin' John. Well, yeah, a really traditional meal would be Hoppin' John, collard greens, and cornbread. And
Love me some cornbread, Joey. You?
oh, well, of course I grew up on it. But
Come on now.
But the thing is, we're talking about true soul food Southern cooking cornbread.
Yes.
Not cornbread cake with sugar in it. People who put sugar in their cornbread, that is considered sacrilegious among Southerners. That would be like somebody who puts sugar, a Sicilian would turn up their nose at somebody who puts sugar in a spaghetti sauce. So I'm talking about real cornbread, folks. But yeah, this is what we would do. And so I started investigating this.
What's the significance?
Well, here's the significance, and you know what's interesting? The pedigree of Hoppin' John is it reminds me a little bit, and I'm sure people who study food find this often to be the case, is that the Cuban sandwich. All right, now we
Revered here in our section of the world because we know its history and we love it. And
That's
we
right.
Eat it.
That's
we eat
right.
it with a great amount of enthusiasm because it connects us with our past.
Right, and I want to mention that we have the book that came out recently, the Cuban Sandwich book, authored by Andy Hughes, Barbara Cruz, and Jeff Houck, and they they did a very interesting dance throughout that entire book, because the problem is this, really simply put: people want history to be very exacting. On this date, this happened. But in a culinary sense, foods don't develop that way. There isn't somebody standing there taking a photograph.
There are happy accidents at times, for sure. There are happy accidents, but
Right.
let me go ahead and do that.
Right. So, so the Cuban sandwich, all of these debates that go on and on. The original sandwich was a mixto sandwich, and probably where we dropped the ball historically was Anglos who lived around Tampa started calling it the Cuban sandwich. Jerry Seinfeld makes a joke that there are no Chinese restaurants in China because they don't call them Chinese restaurants. Really, what we call the Cuban sandwich in Tampa probably should have been called either the Ybor City sandwich
El Tempeño.
or the Tempeño sandwich, something like that. Well, so Hoppin' John, I started doing some investigation, and there's a lot of kind of mythos around this. Now, this is what you'll hear, that it's very, very connected to slavery, and it is in a sense, and here's why. Rice was a crop that was grown in the South, South Carolina, North Carolina, up through that area. And it's a very intensive crop to maintain and harvest. And rice existed in Africa. And so the African slaves who were brought to America were associated with rice crops as they were picking cotton. And so there's this association between rice in Southern culture and soul food and black people, essentially, okay? So there's one connection. However, does that mean that black slaves came over with rice in their pockets? No, okay? Number two, is that black-eyed peas are African, by the way. And so there is an association made, as is okra, by the way. So there's an association made with black-eyed peas. Well, in fact, most slaves who were brought here during the Atlantic slave trade were brought here with the clothes on their back, if they had that. And they did not have pockets full of peas, black-eyed peas. What the history seems to indicate that it was probably the slavers who saw the opportunities, the financial opportunities, to have crops of black-eyed peas and rice, and that's sort of how it got started.
As the slaves would have known how to cultivate it and continue growing
and even cook it and all that good
Correct.
stuff. Yeah, and so there is that. Now, is that so? I don't know. I really don't know how that all went down. I wasn't there. The other part of this is the actual word Hoppin' John. Well, that's fascinating because apparently there was a man in South Carolina whose name was Hoppin' John. Some people are credited with him putting black-eyed peas on rice. I kind of doubt that. I mean, it's not an incredibly innovative act to see the opportunity to put black-eyed peas on top of white rice. I mean, yes. I think I'd put that together.
Yes.
So there's that. There's also another mythos about black children being excited by black-eyed peas and rice, and they would hop around the kitchen, and they were called Hoppin' Johns. This doesn't seem to make any sense to me either. And so the real fact is that it's hard to know how that name came about. But Hoppin' John is a big tradition in my family, and I see it now prepared in a myriad of ways.
Yes.
People put all kinds of added things in Hoppin' John.
Sofrito.
Yeah. All kinds
For starters.
Stuff I don't even know what it is. This is how Hoppin' John was served in my Georgia cracker family from Georgia. And it was like this. White rice, black-eyed peas. Black-eyed peas, by the way, cooked with some ham.
Yes.
Not a lot of ham. Just to give it some flavor.
That's right. That's
okay,
right. Could have been a ham hock or a piece of a ham hock.
When you see people that have all this ham on their Hoppin' Johns, that's not traditional. Because it was a working class, poor person's food.
And where were you going to get that ham?
Pedestrian food, they call it.
Correct.
So, not a lot of ham, but enough for flavor. In the old days, I remember women in the South, they had a Folgers coffee can on the stove, and they kept all their bacon grease in it.
Yes.
And if they didn't have any ham, they'd put a spoon of bacon grease into the black-eyed peas. So we have black-eyed peas with a little ham on white rice. And then when you serve it with a bowl next to it, a small bowl of chopped raw onions. And you put those onions on top. You'll see Cubanos put chopped onions on top of black beans on rice, right?
Of course.
And so that's the food that I remember so well.
It is the bottom of the hour, which means that we're going to be doing a station ID right about now, and it's not going to take us that long to accomplish the station ID, and that's probably a good thing because I'm getting so hungry, Joe. Talking about Hoppin' Johns, I'm going to be running out of the studio to get me some in just a minute. We'll be right back.
You are listening to The Conversation starring Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter on WMNF 88.5 FM, your community radio station.
That was the great Jessica Green.
Yes, thank you, Jessica.
And that came out smooth as silk.
Yeah.
So if you want to join us today on The Conversation, send us an email or send us a text. The email is dj@wmnf.org, or you can send us a text at 813-433-0885. What we're doing is we're just kind of elucidating today, being New Year's Day. We're talking all about traditions, the traditions you might have in your family that you still are practicing today and probably trying to pass on to your children and grandchildren. Also, what are some of your resolutions? What do you hope for? What are your hopes for 2025? Which, when you think about it, 2025, Joe, is almost unimaginable, because I can remember being 12 years old and thinking, wow, in the year 2000, I'm going to be 42. Mm-hmm. And we're already 25 years beyond the year 2000. And, I, like a lot of people, I mean, I don't have an exceptional memory. I'm not by any means putting myself on that level, but I do have a very good memory. And I think it all stems from my childhood, which was pretty good, and the happy times around it. And even if you had sad times, those memories are burned in there as well. So memory is a special thing. But man, that's a lot of years and it seems like it's a very short period of time. Jessica, do you have any emails you can share with us?
One of our longtime friends, Bubba, wants to say that Jimmy Carter was the ultimate public servant.
Here. Let's ring a bell for Jimmy Carter.
Very good, Bubba.
And
That's
Bubba's commentary.
true.
Spot on, Bubba. Thank you so much. Anything else?
The Beep, who is returning to the White House this month, is the ultimate self-servant.
Yeah, that's well said, right? That's well said.
There's so much here that I would like to say that I cannot say, and I won't go into it. But,
we're about 19 days away from, or 20 days away from things changing dramatically. And, we could have had a different outcome. It wasn't to be. I think a lot of people were a little bit bamboozled and maybe even hoodwinked a little bit. But, hopefully those people will wake up in the midterms and things might change. But, it's going to be different. That's for sure. And we don't know because we just don't know.
Maybe there will be a lot of waking up. Let's see what happens.
Well, we want to be hopeful because that's what today is all about.
We're
New
talking
Year's Day
about hope.
is
That's
hope.
right.
So, Joe, I'm thinking because maybe it might not have been such a big thing in your household growing up at that time. It certainly was in mine because, sports was a big thing in our home. New Year's Day also represents bowl games, football games, college football games specifically. And today is no exception. There are, I think, 3 or 4 games today that'll take us from 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right when our show ends, to about 10:30, 11 o'clock tonight. So that's another phenomenon that is happening in our culture. We're mixing our sports in so profoundly that just the other day, when we had 2 games on Netflix, which is another aberration of the NFL, two professional football games, there were 4 games, 4 professional basketball games from the National Basketball Association, the NBA,
Right.
the last game of which was a spectacular game on the West Coast between the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers when they interviewed LeBron James at the conclusion of the game, which was, again, an instant classic. It was one of those down to the last second shots of a game, and the Lakers prevailed. They asked LeBron James a couple of questions. He ended his interview on court side by saying, "Listen, I love the NFL. I love the NFL and everything that it's doing, but Christmas Day is our day." So he was pushing back a little bit because here goes the NFL encroaching on another holiday, which heretofore had been kind of sort of branded as a day to celebrate the NBA and the unofficial beginning of the National Basketball Association's season, right? So we do have these benchmarks. It's just interesting because it's starting to creep. It's starting to creep.
Yeah.
New Year's Day, Christmas Day. How far are we going with this? We're going all the way to Easter now?
Well, a free society requires a lot of responsibility, and that might be a part of our problem. What we did on New Year's Day was there was a tradition that came again out of that Southern Georgia culture for me, which was that what you do, this is a belief, what you do on New Year's Day, you will do for the rest of the year.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that was kind of a belief. Now, most people have the day off.
I don't mind that, to be honest with you, because it kind of lets you know, okay, if this is what you're saying you're going to do,
yes,
then you need to try to do that every day.
Yes, and so this was used by my family to say what you should be doing on New Year's Day is being loving and kind and generous to your family and to your fellow man. That's what you're supposed to be doing on New Year's Day. And it wasn't interpreted as you need to be working on New Year's Day so you can make money all year, or you're not working on New Year's Day, you won't make any money all year. It was mostly about how you treat other people. That's what I remember most about New Year's Day.
And of course, New Year's Day here, like Christmas Day here, in our culture, because we live in the Northern Hemisphere, is completely different than those that will experience it in the Southern Hemisphere because it's the middle of summer down there. So here, New Year's Day is fire in the fireplace up, in the northern climes. And of course, lots of good smells coming out of the kitchen. And everybody kind of staying indoors and huddled around the TV
Right.
watching those football games we talked about.
Right.
But if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, if you're in Brazil or you're in Santiago de Chile or you're in Buenos Aires, I mean, and Australia certainly, is completely different.
Well, to that end, let me speak a little bit to some of these other food traditions that I discovered along the way, which is one is because my name is Joe King Carter.
Love it.
in Louisiana, in Mardi Gras, they have the king cake. Are you familiar with the king cake?
I am so familiar with the king cake, and I look forward to every year getting that little baby. I don't always get it, but
Well,
you know
that's
that tradition.
And that tradition started out with a coin.
Yes.
You would put a coin in the cake and somebody would find it, right? And now they put little plastic babies in the cake, and I'm wondering, wow, I guess that cake doesn't get, that must be some amazing plastic that doesn't melt in that cake. But yeah, the king cake is a beautiful thing
Or they
to
could
look
put
at.
it in afterwards, couldn't they?
I
don't think they do, though. I don't think they do, because you can see where it is now.
Well, I know that with the coin, they just cooked it in the cake.
We've got a caller calling in right now to tell us all about that king cake, and my goodness, we don't have anybody to answer that phone. But listen, if you're listening to us, and I hope you are on the radio, send us an email, because we want to know, do they put the baby in the plastic baby in the, and sometimes they'll put multiple babies, because they want to have more than one
Right.
runner. And I remember, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Joe, they used to do this in a flan. Flan de leche. They would put like a lemon rind.
But why do they call it the king cake?
Come on, Joey, give it to me.
Because the trinket that you find, originally was a coin, there would only be two, and it would be for, if you found it, you would be the king for the day.
Dale.
Or you would
for
be the queen for the day.
Oh, I love it. We had a TV show in the 60s here called Queen for a Day.
There you
Remember
go,
that?
queen for a day. Yeah, yeah.
So these are wonderful traditions. Do you have any traditions in your nuclear family that you guys are adhering to and that you would not do? I mean, listen, no New Year's Day could pass in your family without you doing this one thing, whatever that is. Christmas Day or Thanksgiving, for example, you get the families together, and at some point during the day you go outside and you have a game of touch football. I mean, it's kind of the thing that, you did. Kind of.
Right.
But there could be other things.
They also, here's one I found. In Japan, they have soba noodles. You've seen soba noodles.
Of course.
Very long noodles. They are intentionally long and not short noodles because they symbolize a long and healthy life. How about that?
Joey, do you have any resolutions? I mean, we're getting to the last 15 minutes of our show. And first of all, let me just say, I'm trying, as I'm looking to read some of the comments coming in on our Facebook Live feed, which is very difficult in real time to do. But have you given much thought to what you might like to resolve to change this year in 2025?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm always resolving and changing, and then maybe not changing because I failed at it, and then I come back and hit it again and come at it from a different angle, and I keep doing that.
Got to keep getting up, Joey.
You got to get back up again. Yeah, but I have a resolution that I actually started in the last 2 weeks, and it's very simple, and it is simply not to consume food at night.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. In other words, once the sun goes down,
stop eating.
So this means I need to get my dinner in. Now there might be some not bizarre, but there might be some exceptional day where I'm out with friends late and we have a late dinner. But the general practice will be, and the reason I started
that might be tough for you, Joy, because you're very active in the Ybor City community, and so you're attending a lot of these functions that Boy, you really want daylight savings time to come around, because then you'll get a couple extra hours a day.
A lot of those functions, unfortunately, will have food that I don't even eat.
I know.
It's just not food I eat. But the thing is, what I really like about this is that I started to think a lot about and read about the fact that in terms of our evolution, we did not evolve eating at night. Our ancestors. I'm talking about our pre-Homo sapien ancestors. I'm talking about going back not 200,000 years, but going back 2 million years. Those hominids that became our early ancestors, they weren't eating at night. They didn't have refrigerators, and they were eating during the day. And now it turns out that there's a whole bunch of things about your circadian rhythm and about the enzymes in your body and the way your body handles food that it's really not very healthy, regardless of what you eat, even if it's just a bowl of spinach. It's not really a healthy thing to do, to eat after dark.
Yeah, once your body kind of shuts down the digestive process, you don't want to necessarily have to ramp it. Yeah, you don't want to ramp it back up.
And it turns out, as I said, I've done this for a couple of weeks, and you know what? by golly, I'm feeling better.
Listen, it is
Not that I was eating huge meals at midnight, but the thing is, I might occasionally slip to 7 or 8 o'clock at night on dinner, and I've decided I'm not going to allow that to happen anymore.
And the older we get, the more road we have behind us. It's probably just a better practice to control that eating to certain times
Sure.
of the day, and also to control the volume. Simply just you don't need that many calories. If you're an offensive lineman, you're 25 years old and you're 6'7", 330 pounds. Yeah, buddy, you need some calories,
Right,
And you
right.
can handle it.
Well, I think a lot of people's resolutions do have to do with health and eating, and it probably psychologically has something to do also with the idea that we've just come off of a major 2 months of gorging and indulgence. I mean, we start with Thanksgiving, and some people start. People start with candy at Halloween.
I would suggest that would be the case.
And then we go to Thanksgiving, and then we go to Christmas, and we are surrounded by candy canes and cakes and parties and events and food and food and food and food.
And we're just talking about Hoppin' John, so New Year's Day is no exception either.
Yes. And by the way, that's a carbo. That's not a meal you want to eat every day. That's a carbo load up, is Hoppin' John.
So when you see tomorrow, you'll see the proliferation of Jenny Craig ads and Weight Watchers ads. You know what's going on. You know what time
And
it is.
Ozempic.
And ads for Planet Fitness, and ads for EOS, and ads for all the different Crunch and all the different gyms.
Yeah.
Because this is that time of year. By March, April, we'll probably forget about most of it.
But let me say one more thing.
Please.
In this looking at various traditions with food and New Year's Day, the one that I found the most interesting is that the Pennsylvania Dutch and the Germans, they have pork and sauerkraut. And they believe it's tied to a long life. Now, what's really interesting about that is that sauerkraut is like one of these superfoods.
It is.
It's really good for you because it's a fermented
cabbage.
food. Cabbage is really good for you.
Absolutely.
It's a fermented cabbage.
Absolutely.
It's a major supporter of your gut system and gut health, what they now call the gut biome, right? So, boom, there you go. They're eating sauerkraut for a long life, and it's probably actually having the effect.
We know that fermented foods are good for us, and sometimes they're a little less palatable than sweet things, but we know that chocolate is better when it's bitter. We know that as well. So,
that's right.
It's just that as we continue to evolve or devolve or just stay stagnant, the taste buds in our mouth literally have everything to do. And some people will tell you, biologists, physiologists will tell you that it may even be more of an olfactory connection because, when you do have a cold, then you can't talk because your nose is all stopped up.
Right.
You can't taste anything either. So most of it has to do with your nose.
Right.
So if you've got a good nose, you're probably your system of tasting food is probably on point, and that's what makes the experience of eating food rich and wonderful. It's not the quantity that we consume. That's something completely different, and that's probably what you need some couch time for.
Right.
But now we're often talking about healthy eating habits.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But maybe that's what we should be doing. We should be confronting those things today on day one. And look, there's another thing you said that was very poignant, Joe, about don't eat after sundown. And the other thing I think could be considered here as a top priority is portion control. Just control the portions a little bit and realize as you get older, 50s, 60s, 70s, you just don't need that much.
Right.
You can still have that piece of flan. You can still have all the wonderful delectables that we crave because we have so many wonderful memories attached to them. But, puppy, just eat a couple of bites or just eat a small slice.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Where do we go with that, Joe? All of a sudden, we're telling you how to eat and where to eat.
Yeah.
Who are we to tell you that? Well, we love you guys, and we just want you to be here for us as we proceed through 2025, because one thing we know is we are nothing without you guys, right? I mean, Joey, we come in here, all of us volunteers, nobody's getting paid to do this. And we hope that you guys are taking our conversations in the spirit in which they are intended, which is to, again, enlighten and inform, educate a little bit, but mostly to stay connected, because where is this show but at the intersection of community and culture?
We want to be here for the listeners, and we hope that they're enjoying themselves.
And they seem to be, because I said last week's Facebook Live feed had over 780 views. This show will live in the archives. And for those of you that don't know, maybe we should mention it right up at the top. WMNF.org, our website. If you were to go to our website and navigate the website and look for previous shows, all of our shows, which now, Joe, they're starting to mount up.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're well past 25, going towards 50 shows now. We just check them all out. They're all there. You can listen to any one of them.
That's right.
We've had plenty of wonderful guests in studio sharing their personal narratives.
And while we're doing a little studio business, let me just say that New Year's Day is a great moment in time for you to make a donation to WMNF. So if you enjoy our show, please hit that tip jar. Send us a couple of dollars. Spread the wealth. Remember that I said, what you do on New Year's Day, you'll do the whole year. Be charitable and be kind to us.
I like the phrase "give till it hurts." And if it hurts, let it hurt a little bit more. No, we do have a fundraising drive that's coming up in February. We'll get to that. I mean,
Yes.
We always do that. We have a quarterly event that, community radio is all predicated on. And that's how we're able to do the things that we do without being restricted by having benefactors tell us what we need to put on the air, right?
Right.
So community radio lives and dies at times with the generosity of the listening public. So we've got opportunities, and we appreciate each and every one of you for joining us. Jess, do you have any emails there you might like to read before we get ready to wrap this up here in just a couple of minutes? Anything come through? Not that you can see? Okay, wonderful.
She's shaking her head.
Yeah, she said, I have to sit up real tall to see over the computer screen, because Jess sits down low. So Joe, let's...
No, you sit down low.
I do. I do. Touche, my brother. I can. But I'm going to have to get home now and start the Hoppin' Johns. I did buy them.
Yeah.
And so now I got to get home and prepare.
Let me tell you, I'll just right up front. So as a Southern boy, I love me some black eyed peas. Oh, yeah. And my mother used to cook them, you cook them down into a gravy. You cook them down like the way the
nice and thick, right?
The way the Cubanos cook black beans.
Yeah.
You cook them down into this gooey, thick stuff, and they are so tasty.
A meal
in fact,
unto itself.
Black eyed peas have a flavor that just obviously nothing else has, and it's a special thing. And I have black eyed peas every now and then in the middle of the year, of course, other than New Year's Day, just because I love them. Yeah.
100%. So as we're getting ready to close our New Year's Day show, let me say that my resolution for the coming year is to slow down a little bit, like Jessica was alluding to earlier, to kind of smell the roses, smell the coffee. I mean, we're all in the middle
of this. What does that mean, slow down?
What does it look like? What does it feel like?
Yeah, what is the genesis of that?
It just means don't miss an opportunity to be kind. Don't miss an opportunity to be gracious. Don't if you love somebody, tell them you love them. If you want to give them a hug, give them a hug. Stay connected to your brothers and sisters.
I see.
Hyper local, right? So, because it all starts right here in our own community.
So it's sort of paying more attention.
Paying more attention and just making sure that, we lose people every year, man. We lose people every year.
Yes.
And at the end of the year, there's always an in memoriam that, the Oscars will do and the Grammys will do. That's always in the entertainment industry. But on a very personal level, it's the circle of life. So slow down just long enough to make sure that you let those people that are in your life know how much they've...
No time like the present.
Let them know how much they've impacted you and your life. And whether it's a high school teacher that you had, a coach that you had in Little League, a dear friend that's been at your side for 40, 50 years. I think that's one of the main things. And then try not to be as mean-spirited. It's tough these days, man, because we're all in this gotcha politics vortex that seems to keep sucking us back in.
Also, we live in a cultural moment where the energy is very high between social media and digital media and the AI and the presence of all these things that are sort of bearing down on us. I'm always working on trying to be a little kinder and a little more aware that everybody is in their own bubble of issues and problems and stuff that they're dealing with. And for me to get triggered by somebody really is unfair to them and to me. So I try to just be as open as I can to, why is this guy saying this? Why is he acting this way toward me? What is happening?
The whys are always important. I've always thought that the whys, and if we can get to a better understanding of the whys, then it tends to give us an opportunity to react appropriately, right? So, because like you said, Joe, very eloquently stated, everybody's in their own bubble, man, and everybody's suffering with something. So all of that said, let's you and I resolve that in 2025, Wednesdays at noon, right here on WMNF, WMNF.org, we are going to do our best to uplift and to make this hour of power, right, midday, midweek, midweek, midday, your opportunity to connect with us, so that when you leave us and you listen to Mr. Bannon, who's about to do his musical thing in just a few minutes, you're ready to race towards the weekend, and we leave you with a smile.
Absolutely, I see Jim Bannon over there. Yeah. I see him.
He's warming up, man. He's getting ready.
He's the Sultan of Sound.
Yes, he is, and he's getting ready. He's got his WMNF fundraising T-shirt on, which was cool. We have those shirts too, Joey. They're shirts.
I completely agree with you, and I want to be. I think that it's always been, as you and I talked about this show in its inception, to try to do something a little different. And different means uplifting, because most media today out there in the world beyond WMNF is, it's very wearing. There's a lot of negative media going on because negativity sells, right?
Always has.
And so, yes.
The more dreadful, if it bleeds, it leads. This is a very cynical way that newscasters, planned and producers plan their newscasts. Well, we're going to try to not do that. we're going to try to not do that in the coming year, and sometimes it might be unavoidable.
Well, that's the reason when we bring people in and we share their personal narratives, that is, I think of that as an uplifting connection. The connection is that everybody has a story, and you might relate to that story. And I think that's one of the chief things. We didn't have a guest today because it's New Year's Day, but we will be back on track next week. And I think that's what we want to do, is to have those folks come in and share their lives with us, and we all feel connected together. That helps maybe take you a little bit out of your bubble, is the way I could say that.
Professional clinicians will have you know that because of all of the devices that we interact with throughout the course of the day, it is actually we are actually disconnecting from our fellow man more and more each year.
Yes.
As these devices become more AI compatible, and will it be too long before we have something like with the Jetsons, those of us that remember the cartoon, Rosie, living in our house to give us companionship. But there is nothing like the human touch, Joe. There's nothing like the human connection.
That's right.
I think that's what WMNF does at its best. When we are functioning and hitting on all cylinders, that's what WMNF does.
Community radio.
Keeps us connected.
There we go. Yeah.
So we hope that you guys have been enjoying our show today. We look forward to 2025 and keeping you in the fold, as it were. Joe, we're going to resolve to keep each other on track.
That's it.
As far as our resolutions. And your beard is spectacular, by the way. I expect that next week you'll look completely different, because if there's one thing we know about Joey, he's a bit of a chameleon when it comes to his facial hair.
Yes, well,
where did that all start,
It's
Joey?
the Santa Claus moment. I just got, every now and I just thought I'd grow my beard out to see what it looks like again.
It's pretty white, Joe.
It's totally white, my friend. Are you kidding?
So what I think you should do next year at the Christmas holiday is just go ahead and step into it. And I mean, when I say that, grow it out. Go ahead and get your Santa hat and just just live that moment, man.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to know that you've been genetically designed to be Santa Claus.
Well, and maybe I'm genetically designed to be your elf, because at my height it just works. It just works.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, we are here to uplift, and that's the goal. In 2025, there's going to be some stuff ahead that's going to be tough. and we're going to deal with it and move forward.
To all of you that have been watching us on Facebook today, thank you all so much for being there. We love each and every one of you guys. For those of you listening in your cars, for those of you listening in your homes, or while you're out taking a little walk and you're listening to us on WMNF.org, thank you as well. Jessica, any closing thoughts or comments before we get out of here?
Everybody have a very happy New Year.
I love
There
it.
we
Jessica
go.
is a woman of few words.
Well,
but she's like E.F. Hutton when she speaks, everybody listens. I'm just
yeah,
going to
but
say it up front.
she's our stabilizer.
Let me tell you something, and we all need it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
She's our vertical and our horizontal stabilizer, right?
That's right.
Left
That's
wing,
right.
right wing, but we wouldn't be anywhere without Jess pushing the right buttons.
I have a lot to do over here.
Yes, you do. She does. She does. And every once in a while, she'll point her finger at us and make sure that we stay on time.
Yeah, oh no. We love Jessica.
To my brother, thank you so much for being at my side each and every week.
Of
I love
course.
you, Joey, and we're going to get this year is going to be a big one for us.
We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna be positive, folks.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, you're listening to The Conversation. This has been Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter, along with Jessica Green, WMNF, Tampa.